welcome to our Barbie event today. We're all Barbies today in some fashion.
Hi, Barbie.
But today we have a special Barbie. We have Dr. Barbie here, Rose Bailey, and her fabulous husband, Mike Kaplan, who is, you might have seen this couple before because they've been at our vintage car show. And then, of course, we have Ken, a few other Kens here. Ken, my husband, Jonathan, and Ken, Jim. So thank you, everyone, for coming. So here's the lowdown for today. So we are going to have Rose speak first. Rose is a vintage doll refurbisher, collector. She repairs Barbies. CJ Posk actually brought a beautiful Barbie to show Rose. And she's going to discuss her collection. Rose has 10,000 dolls. She refurbishes Barbies, she buys Barbies, she sells Barbies. So Rose is first. Then at about 1, we're going to show the movie Barbie, and that is going to go on from 1 to 3. And from 3 to 4, we have Dr. Diane Bakatko from Holy Cross College and Sarah J. Lieber from Women's Jewish Archives speaking about Barbie as a cultural icon. So enjoy the day. Take it away, Rose.
Thank you. Hi, Barbie. I'm Rose. Hi. So basically, I should start by telling you, when I was a little girl, my mom would say, if you don't clean your room, I'm going to throw away all your toys. So that day came. I came home. All my toys were gone. The only thing in my room was my bed, my dresser, my lamp. And so naturally, I had this subconscious anger. For years, I didn't know where it was coming from. Until one day, my mom, about 18 years ago, said, I have a surprise for you. Well, she didn't throw my dolls away. She gave them to my aunt, who put them in the attic. Well, and then she gave them back to my mom. My mom called and said, I have a surprise. And she sent me one box full of my dolls that my cousins had played with and cut their hair and put ink on the face, cut their fingers off and their toes. And so I really wanted them to go back to life. And I got online and I figured out how to get all the inks out of them, repaint them, fabricate the fingers, the toes. And let's go a little faster here. I took one doll and I refurbished her, I rerouted her, repainted her, and I put her online on eBay for $14.99 as an auction, and it sold for $168. So I said, I'm on to something. So I went through every single doll that my mom had sent back, and I refurbished them. And of course, those ones I kept. But I started going online and buying dolls, and I got obsessive. And I tried to win this one auction, and I lost. I was so upset. And then my husband over here, Michael, he said, you want dolls? We'll get you dolls. So he puts ads in 37 newspapers. Dolls want it, we'll pay cash. And before you know it, every lady in all 5 New England states were calling me up. I have these dolls, I'm moving, I can't keep them, do you want them? I'm selling these, I need money. I had every story. Well, here we are today at over 10,000 dolls, and mostly Barbies. And I have gone through every one of them. When they come in the house, I wash them, and I diagnose their needs. If they need new hair, they go in this pile. They need new fingers and toes, they go in this, or need new legs, they go in this pile. New arms, I have it all down. And so, in order to keep up my habit, I have to keep buying and selling. So what I do is I reroute them. Here are a few examples of the reroutes in one of the rare ponytail Barbies. And so sometimes they come in this condition. Somebody cut their hair off. So then I proceed to cut the rest. Then I pull every strand out until it's totally clean. And then I start with my little homemade tool and some hair. And I proceed to poke through every single hole that's missing hair. Once I'm done with that, I glue it. Then we go into the styling. So you'll see where little Skipper has a little headband on, so that's going to keep her hair set. This little girl has tape on her little curl, so we'll give it time to set. She's complete. This little girl, she still needs to have her hair done, the ponytail. If you remember way back, the ponytails came with a little natural curl in the back. So that's what I do with them. Then here's the collection. How can I start this? Everybody remembers way back when Barbie first came out. It would have been a blonde ponytail Barbie, 1959, Ruth Handler. Designed Barbie in, then she came out with a brunette. And then, of course, Ken. And then, I don't know if anybody's seen the movie, Just Allen. So he's very rare. He only came out for 1 year, I believe. And so it's very hard to find him. And when you do, hold on. Well, anyway, hold on to your man. That's right, John. So Barbie was coming out in 1959 to 1974, were the ponytails. Then, of course, we're going to go back to the mod dolls from Taiwan and Skipper, Hong Kong and Taiwan. And then, because of the war in 1968 to 72 or 74, I believe, was the Vietnam War, we couldn't import the dolls from Japan, so we started importing them from Hong Kong. And Barbie couldn't keep up with the pricing, so they came out with a smaller doll, Topper Dawn, 1970. The early ones are Japan and Hong Kong. And then, of course, the other competitive action figure, not doll, is the G.I. Joe. And then they had the Tammy doll. Now, everybody notices the Barbie style has a full-grown body, and a lot of ladies that were conservative back in those days wouldn't allow their mothers to, or the children to play with the adult Barbie, so they came out with one with a teen body. So this would be the Tammy doll, and she has like the flat chest, and also like Skipper. Skipper was also a teen body, and she came out for the conservative moms. Now, today, the Barbies today are all like jointed. They have the moving hands, moving arms, very posable, moving knees, moving feet. So that's that. I think I'm done talking. Does anybody have any questions?
Were the first Barbies made in America or no?
No, the first Barbie came from Japan. She was, Ruth Handler did design her here in the United States. And, yeah. Anybody else?
What's the history of the woman who invented Barbie?
Ruth Handler was a housewife. She was the most beautiful woman, one of our first entrepreneurs. Well, way back, I don't know if you remember the Bill Lilly doll. Bill Lilly looked just like Barbie, except she was made of like a different material. And she was made for the gentleman, and you could find them in like cigar shops or bars or what have you. She came out in 1955, and she was made in Germany. I think I said that. And well, Ruth got the idea that little girls liked the dolls so much that she came out with Barbie. I think Barbie today is more popular than she's ever been, especially that the movie came out, and we're going to see that soon, and you'll see a bit more of the history of Barbie. But I'll tell you that on eBay, I was selling probably well, 4 or 5 dolls a week. Now I sell like 5, 6 dolls a day. So the popularity has increased. I really believe it had a lot to do with the movie, and I'm like, thank you, movie angels. Yes, because I'm busy. I wake up, I eat, sleep, play, dream Barbie. If I'm not dressing them, I'm mending them up. If I'm not mending them, I'm like looking for them. But I'll tell you that they did start being made in Japan. Then they were made in Taiwan and Hong Kong. Then to Malaysia and China. And we have all the movie star Hollywood Barbies. We have all the Barbie of the World dolls, the career Barbies. So there's so many different sections and categories. You can find some of the furniture that is compatible with Barbie, the 12-inch dolls and 11-inch dolls. Hawthorne, California used to make a lot of their furniture, the kitchenette sets. Like, I don't know if anybody remembers the deluxe kitchenette set, and maybe even the townhouse. I think one of the ladies were talking about the first townhouse that came out was the yellow or orangish and white. So some of those were made in Mexico and some in the United States. But dolls, no. Yes, there are exclusive Japanese dolls, which are like highly sought after in the Barbie world, and have any? I don't. I think I sold them so I could buy other dolls. Had I known, I would have kept them, but yes, so there are some Japanese exclusives. There are some Germany that are exclusive and very rare. I have 6 of the yellow and white original dream houses, 1 pink and white, which is very rare. Then I have, oh goodness, probably 27 of all the different years of Barbie townhouse dream houses, and so the different styles, the fold-up case houses, yes. The rarest Barbie would be one of the original ponytail Barbies, 1959. And it would have a number 1 on the right rear cheek, and it would have like the, excuse me, I have the hair. It would have pins in the foot made of like copper, and it would go on a stand that had the 2 little pegs. Now I've seen the number 1 Barbie go for $10,000 to $30,000, and that would depend on if she has her original face paint, her original nails, no chew marks, all the hair plugs, and the eyebrows. So yeah, if she was pristine, I've seen them go up to $30,000. I've seen just the number 1 heads go for like $300. Yes. Anyone else? Are we ready to see the movie? I'm ready. Thank you so much. If you have any more questions, come and ask me. If you'd like any of your dolls to be mended, we can get my number from Suki, or I will write it on the pad on the table, and you can write it down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you so much. We're going to start the movie at 1, so if you have any questions for Rose, and I think some people brought some Barbies, if you want to bring them up to Rose. I also want to thank the Jewish Healthcare Center and the Jewish Community Center for their collaboration today. The Jewish Healthcare Center sponsored coffee and cookies. You're welcome. Free. Please come up.
It's hot up here.
Please come up. Thank you, Jewish Healthcare Center.
And thanks for having me, and thanks for hanging out for this part of the program. While we're waiting to get Sarah J. up here and anybody else who's zooming in, I thought we could at least start the discussion. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, I do teach courses in child development. My training is on how children think and remember and solve problems. And right now in my lab, we're doing a study of how children understand, how girls and boys understand violations of gender norms and what the penalties might be. So a lot of what we're studying has to do with what you saw in the movie. Especially Right now, we're studying how children react to girls who are self-promoting versus self-effacing. Kind of like the Nobel Prize in Journalism in Barbie Land, where the woman says, yeah, I wrote this and I deserve it, versus in the real world, or no, it was in Kendom, she said, oh, I don't even know that I wrote anything. So we're actually studying some of these very issues in the world of children right now. But Sarah J., who you'll meet shortly, and I thought before we offered you some of our insights based on our own backgrounds and interests, we would start with your reactions to the movie. I'm really curious what you thought of the movie. Did you love it? Did you not like it? Did you find certain scenes particularly poignant or resonant for you? You know, I feel like I'm in my Wednesday afternoon seminar with my 22-year-old students who say the very same things, that they understand, they've been socialized to be nice. And we read some research in my class about how that understanding of what girls are supposed to be is already in place by age 6. So there's a study out of New York University, a pretty active social cognitive lab, and they asked children who are 5, 6, and 7, if you can think of somebody who's really, really smart, point to the picture of the kid who's really, really smart. And they point to the boy. Point to the child who's really, really nice, and they point to a picture of the girl. Not at age 5, but at age 6 and upward they do. So this idea of niceness actually starts really early. And you know, we just talked in my seminar 2 weeks ago about what that means in terms of performing now that niceness role. Even, you know, if you, the double-edged sword, sometimes when women achieve levels of leadership, they have to display their competence, but they can't give up their niceness because there's a penalty for that. And we see that in how university presidents are hired and fired and how political candidates are viewed. And we see that all around us still to this day. So I don't know if it's heartening or depressing for me to see that some of the things you experienced are still part of what young women are experiencing today, but they do. They recognize the importance of niceness. Yeah.
The exact same behavior of a man and a woman in the same position, say a barn, and it can be exactly the same, but he is described as, you know, confident and a leader, and she is described as being, you know, overly aggressive and rude or whatever, and they're doing the exact same thing.
Right, and it's something that's really hard to crack, actually. It's something that I know my students and I struggle with in terms of, well, how do you change that dynamic? I mean, this goes back to a study a friend of mine did. Her name is Linda Carley. She was at UMass Amherst at the time, and then at Wellesley for a long time. But she studied college students who spoke males and females, one-on-one conversations, and when females spoke assertively, in other words, in a masculine style, versus tentatively, that means nicely, okay? Males were not influenced by the female, and in addition, they did not like her.
I think also people look for a male, or back when, I mean, I went to college in 1979, they kind of looked for a male professor thinking they were more competent, there were more of them, obviously, and a pilot. Some people didn't want to get on a plane with a woman pilot.
Right. I mean, we talked about this in class too, how, you know, what do students say about professors in their course evaluations? They talk about their women professors as nice and their male professors as smart. So, you know, these themes resonate, and the difficulty of, you know, wanting to be competent, but realizing that you also have to play this role in order to achieve your ends. It's a performance, and when can we shed the performance aspect and be ourselves? Which is, I think, what you were alluding to as well.
I think
Yeah.
progress is made is that we're talking about it and
Well,
we're aware of it, even
so-
though it hasn't changed.
So this is a good point because some of my friends, oh, we have Zoom. Some of my friends who are social psychologists thought the movie was too simplistic. And I said, you know what? I don't think so. I think that, we get caught up in all these complicated discussions, but these are messages that haven't reached the wider public. I mean, they need to have farther reach. And you can't make the first pass too complicated. I think you just need to put it out there. And I think that's what made me be so positive about this movie. Because when I went into the theater, I wasn't expecting to like it. I thought this was going to be very different from what it was. And I ended up loving the movie. So, but I saw, yeah, please. Yeah. No. Well, I think it probably does, and I don't know what it is about the school experience. I mean, that's a great observation. So why should it change so quickly and at that moment? And that is the life experience of the child now. You're in a different place most of the day, a lot of the day, right? So what is it that's happening in school? Well, you're spending more time with peers. Maybe there are some things that happen in the classroom situation. Actually, I could go on about that. I do know that when teachers call out gender, it presents the idea to children, girls line up here, boys line up there. It's showing children that gender matters as a social category. So, they pick up on that very quickly. Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to introduce, do we have?
Thank you. Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
So
I don't want to leave our co-discussant hanging there in a Zoom window without an introduction.
So we had a few technical difficulties. I'm Nancy Greenberg from the Worcester JCC. So both Professor Diane and Sarah J., who I will momentarily introduce, had written articles about the Barbie movie. So that's how one in the Worcester Telegram and then one for the Jewish Women's Archive. So let me introduce Sarah J. Lieber, who is on Zoom happily because we had a little bit of technical difficulties. Let me just Sarah J. Lieber is a New York-based writer with criticism and essays in Polygon, Brightwall Darkroom, Bitch, JTA, and more. She is also the culture writer at Jewish Women's Archive, where the Barbie article appeared, and a founding contributor to Broad Sound, a new offbeat journal of arts writing. Sarah's play, Please Laugh, is a semifinalist for the 2024 Eugene O'Neill National Playwrights Conference. Congratulations. Her screenplay, Hearts and Bones, was a semifinalist in Screencraft's 2021 TV pilot competition. She has a BA in theater and history from Muhlenberg College. Welcome, Sarah J. Lieber. We're so glad to have you on screen. And what would be the best way to just sort of continue the flowing with this discussion, because Sarah J. missed the first part. Can I hand the mic back to you? Okay, great, thank you.
Hi, Sarah J. I don't know how much you heard of what we've been talking about, but I have a couple more things to kind of poke into, but feel free to jump in. And then I think we'll turn the floor over to you, if that's okay. Okay, so one of the things I responded to in this movie was actually the role that Ken played. I was very intrigued by Ken's first experience with the real world, and I wondered if you had a strong reaction to what you saw when Ken entered the real world. To me, there was a dramatic event that happened. Does anybody share that kind of, I kind of focused in on that, maybe because I know what babies do. What babies do is they look for cues. on how to categorize the social world. And you could call them gender detectives. They're kind of looking for how to organize the world. And we know that babies do that with language, but they also do that with social events and social objects. And by 7 months of age, babies can categorize men versus women based on voice cues, hair length. By age 2, they know the stereotypes. And by age 3, they know metaphors concerned with stereotypes, like fire is a boy thing, and a jagged line is a boy thing, and a butterfly is a girl thing. And nobody's really ever taught them that, right? Nobody sits down with children and says, oh, a jagged line is for boys and a curly line is for girls. So to me, that's indicating they're extracting a lot of information from the world that is prepackaged nicely for them according to gender. So I was just intrigued by how Ken constructed the world of masculinity. It was pretty blatant, but did you notice? Like, what was masculinity to him?
Cowboy.
What's that?
Cowboy.
Yeah. I mean, it was money, it was president, it was a truck, beer, mini fridge, right? Horses. I thought that was hilarious, right? Because it just happened to be associated with masculinity. Bravado and bluster. But it was obvious right in his first moments at the Mattel headquarters, right? So what that reminded me of was the world of the infant. He was like an infant in the real world, and he functioned like one. So I really saw that Greta Gerwig and her husband, who was a co-screenwriter, I believe, were very familiar with, I thought, some of the research on children's acquisition of gender. It just popped out right to me. And the other character, and I want to make sure I leave some time for Sarah J. The other character I was intrigued by was Alan. And I wanted to know what you made of Alan. Possibly. He was different, clearly. He was different. I thought he represented androgyny, really, because he was soft. Even his body shape was different from Ken, right? But he could fight. He could protect those women from the construction workers, so he could do that, but he could also be sensitive and understanding. So I thought Alan was a really interesting figure. And I know we have one of the rare depictions of Alan back there, right? One of the few, right? Oh, and Weird Barbie. That's fantastic, yeah. But I really, at first I was puzzled by Alan's role in this movie, but by the time I saw the movie again a second time, I began to understand. I think he was there for a reason. The last thing I'll say is I was puzzled why Mattel would want to sponsor this or be involved with this movie, because in some ways it was critical of the company. So I don't know if you have some thoughts about that. Why would Mattel enter into a partnership with Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie, who were the producers?
Probably say that about a lot of companies back then, and maybe they just want to own up to it now.
So they're having a confession moment, or?
Or they're just being realistic about it so it doesn't backlash on them, like they made a big stink about it not being involved and being difficult.
So they're being honest, and they want to portray themselves as honest.
Maybe try to fix it.
Or maybe try to fix it, which is kind of my hope, right?
Who wrote the story?
Greta Gerwig. Yeah. Yeah. I think that I'd be interested in seeing what their sales have been like for Barbie. I have a feeling they've been skyrocketing, actually. So, really? You're doing well. That's great. Yeah, yeah. Well, and as Will Ferrell's character indicated, ordinary Barbie wasn't of interest to him, but when the dollars started rolling in, it was okay. So maybe this kind of moment in the movie was lucrative for Mattel. You're right about that. Why would you mention the Constitution, for example, right? That's not something you would think of ordinarily. So I think that's a really great observation. Sarah J.
Hi, thank you all for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I wanted to talk a little bit about Barbie as a symbol and what symbols can actually do for us. I think a lot of the tension, I think that based on what the conversation that was being had in the room and just conversations that have been had around the movie, like the tension people are feeling about Barbie is that multiple things about it are true. It is a really sweet, heartfelt movie that is also a feature-length toy commercial. How can we reconcile that? How can we feel good about that at the same time that we're being critical of it? And I think that I started understanding Barbie better, the movie, when I started thinking about her as a character as a kind of golem. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the legend of the golem. It's a creature from Jewish folklore who was created in Prague in the 16th century to protect the Jewish quarter of Prague from anti-Semitic attack. And to give him instructions, you write words on a piece of paper and put it in his mouth. And the catch with the golem is really that ultimately he is inanimate. He understands human instruction to the extent that you're able to write it out, but sometimes the golem's protective instincts or the instruction you're giving is not clear enough, and it ends up that damage is done rather than protection is given. So I was thinking about that and thinking about playing with Barbie dolls, and I was thinking about what we do when we play with Barbie dolls, which is we are projecting all of our hopes and our dreams onto this little like 10-inch plastic. And the thing about that is it can create wonderful things and lead to wonderful futures. But Barbie herself can only accept our hopes and dreams, right? We can only tell her what we want and make it happen ourselves. And I think a lot of what Greta Gerwig is doing in the movie is showing us that symbols are symptoms of larger problems. Symbols are not able to actually solve our problems. Golems aren't real, Barbie isn't real, superheroes aren't real. We create these things in order to like have a receptacle for talking about our anxieties with the society that we're living in. But we can't actually count on Barbie to end patriarchy. We have to do that. And I think there's something really interesting in there also about reckoning with some kind of creator or some kind of higher power. I love Rhea Perlman in this movie. I think she is so wonderful. That scene is so sweet and great. And I love that Barbie sees this woman who describes herself as a 5'0" grandma with a double mastectomy and tax evasion issues as this like divine figure. That reads like, that's so special to me that we can look at a figure who created us and find divinity in their flaws. And I think that both Barbie and her creator carry that same burden of being flawed. And, you know, she's not our answer to everything. So, and she says it in the movie, we make up things like patriarchy and Barbie to deal with how uncomfortable it is to be human. I think, like a golem, Barbie represents safety and triumph without literally existing and physically protecting us. She is like the symptom of a disease, but she's not a cure to any disease. But we need those symptoms, those symbols, in order to start addressing the underlying issues. So that's what I think about Barbie, and I'd love to hear any of your responses to the movie or anything.
Sarah J., I just wonder what you think about this thought, that something about Barbie's experience with the real world helped her march toward humanity. And so the real world, as depressing it might be in some sense, actually holds great hope too. It was that contact that initiated her change and her ability to feel.
And to me, what feels important about that is that she finds humanity through others, not through the society that she's experiencing. She has so many issues with what's going on around these people, but it is America Ferrera's character and her daughter and that bond that they have, and her work to preserve that bond that like really shows her what it means to be human. It's not our systems that are special about humanity, it's each other.
I responded to the woman on the bench and Barbie looking at her and saying, "You're beautiful." And the older woman saying, "I know." I love that. But that was an intergenerational moment that caught my eye. Yeah. Was there hope? Oh, I know.
Yeah, I think Barbie's decision to become human is the most empowering thing about the movie. I think her choice to live in a body that is going to age and grow and change over time, and that she wants that she is so desperate to connect with that part of herself, is extremely hopeful. I think that's, yeah.
And it's okay to feel emotions. I really picked up on that one teardrop and then many teardrops. And it wasn't necessarily sad, it was just feeling, right? Being able to feel. You know, even at a biological level, gender is not two categories. It is not. There are XX and XY, but there's XXX, XXY, XYY, X0. And then all kinds of things happen after that. So even biologically, gender itself is not a binary category. And so, you know, thinking of that kind of continuum of possibilities, it originates even in the fact of gender, which isn't two categories. This is like, well, I have to say this is like my gender role class, where if I get one man in the whole class, it's an accomplishment. This semester I have two. And we always say we don't expect you to represent all of the male population on the planet, but actually we do. I can tell you as a psychologist is because when people are in their box, as they attempted to put Barbie in her box, back in her box, there are costs. There are psychological costs for boys and for girls. And we're becoming more and more aware of those in my field right now. So, you know, if we want children to thrive, the constraints of gender roles are sometimes getting in the way. I see it in my classroom when a woman raises her hand, and it's usually half-hearted. If she's asking a question, she'll apologize first. She'll say, "Sorry, but I have a question." The string of apologies, sorry, 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 sorry. And so we have a rule in my classroom, nobody apologizes for asking a question. That's what's supposed to happen in a classroom. Or I don't know if this is right, but, and then they'll give their answer. So it's that tentativeness, which, you know, trying to work against that. He didn't thrive in Barbie world. No. Yeah, Barbie world wasn't good for Ken. Yeah. Other comments or other aspects of the movie? Yeah. There was a commentary on war for sure. And you know, the Kens were going to fight the Kens. Well, how do we know which Kens we're fighting? Because we're all Kens. We're all humans. So I thought there was a strong commentary on war there as well. Yeah. Absolutely. She was absolutely engaged and taken with that conversation, right? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what we mean by becoming your authentic self and permitting things that sometimes gender roles don't permit, right? And the suffering that ensues. Sarah J., I'm just offering you a chance to jump in here if you have something you want to wrap up with. Are we getting close to the end of our time? Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing I think that I haven't mentioned or haven't heard is I think that I wanted to just quickly talk about the conversation around awards. I think that this movie was not made to break cultural barriers. I think it was made to start conversations. And I think that those conversations aren't immediately powerful enough to immediately fix like systemic issues within the awards academy, which is only really equipped to sort of take its own temperature. So I just wanted to say that I think that a movie that is nominated for 8 awards is not being snubbed. And I think this movie is wonderful, and I think it will get all the accolade that it needs. And as much as it is a systemic problem in the Academy, not that they don't often nominate women for Best Director, I think that what this movie is being recognized for is just as significant as some of these other big awards. So I don't think it's really a failure of culture that the movie is not nominated for Best Director or Best Leading Actress. I think to look at the other nominations, I think that's a win. That's how I would talk about it. That's the last thing I wanted to say.
And just jumping off that, I think Ryan Gosling's immediate response to that told me, I think a lesson I always knew, that if groups want to make progress, they need allies. And, all of us actually need our allies. And his messaging was a demonstration of that. So we just need to care for each other, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't wait for her next movie, right? Okay.
And she's nominated for her screenplay. She's nominated for her
Right.
screenplay, and if the movie wins Best Picture, Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie will both win Academy Awards for producing. And I think that's just as important.
Right. Right. Okay. Are we good? Oh, well, before I hand over the mic, I just want to thank you for this wonderful conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you about this movie. I might have to see it again a 4th time.
And
Thank you.
Professor Bukatko, thank you so much for being here in person. You had the burden of having to lead the discussion amongst us, but it was so helpful. And thank you, Sarah J. Lieber. It was, I think, so helpful to actually process what we just saw. And this was my 2nd time viewing the film, and I know I got a lot more out of it this time. And then the discussion was so helpful too, to sort of get me thinking even deeper. So I'm going to hand the mic over to my colleague Suki over there, but I just wanted to say that this was a great collaborative program between the Worcester JCC and the Worcester Senior Center, and it's so nice to see all of this pink in the audience and our pink tablecloths and this great turnout today. So let me just hand off the mic, and then the Barbies. Oh, I think I'm the biggest fan here of this table over here, so.
Yes, I just want to thank Rose Bailey and her husband Mike for coming up from Connecticut. And if you haven't had a chance to see Weird Barbie and Alan, please come over and see before she dismantles everything. And thank you so much for coming.